Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a genuinely fascinating situation here, straight from the source material you shared.
Yeah, it's quite something.
Imagine a health tech company, focused on personal health independence, suddenly announcing this, well, pretty major pivot into Bitcoin.
Right. And not just any company.
No, exactly. But one now backed by a name, very familiar in the Bitcoin world, Adam Back.
And what's compelling here, I think, is how these seemingly disparate fields, health tech and decentralized finance, are sort of converging.
Yeah.
It's not a pairing you'd immediately expect, is it? But the company, they make a clear argument for the connection.
They really do. So our mission for this deep dive, let's cut through the noise using only the source material provided.
Okay.
We want to understand the nuts and bolts of the Swedish company's move into Bitcoin, figure out who specifically provided the significant funding for this pivot, and critically dissect why they claim the strategy aligns so perfectly with their core business and values. Let's jump right in.
All right. So the company in question is H100 AB Group. They're a Swedish health tech firm.
Okay.
Their focus is providing tools for individuals who are looking for alternatives to what they call the reactive health system.
Right, sort of empowering people to take more proactive control over their own well-being.
Exactly that.
And they certainly made a splash recently, May 22nd, that was the date.
That's the one.
H100 announced a pretty bold decision. They'd adopt a policy to buy Bitcoin for their corporate treasury.
Yeah, and this wasn't just like talk. It was a formal policy change.
A real commitment.
And they wasted absolutely no time putting that policy into action. The source tells us that immediately after making that announcement.
Right away.
Right away. They went out and purchased their first block of Bitcoin, 4.39 Bitcoin to be exact.
Wow. Policy announced, action taken, just like that.
Pretty decisive.
Which naturally leads us to the question, how are they funding this new Bitcoin strategy?
Good question. Well, H100 recently secured a significant funding round, totaling 21 million Swedish krona.
Okay, 21 million SEK. What's that in U.S. dollars, roughly?
That translates to about 2.2 million U.S. dollars.
Okay, 2.2 million. And this is where the Bitcoin world really leans in, isn't it?
Absolutely. The source highlights that the lead investor in this particular funding round was none other than Adam Back.
Adam Back himself.
Widely known, a longtime Bitcoin cypherpunk and currently the CEO of Blockstream.
Right.
His contribution alone was substantial, made up around $1.4 million of that total raise.
Wow, so the majority of it, that kind of backing sends a strong signal.
A very strong signal, especially from a foundational figure in the space like him.
So where did the rest come from? The other, what, $800,000?
Yeah, the remaining $800K came from a group of other investment firms, Morning Klein, Olindo Invest AS, Race Venture Scandinavia AB, and Crayford Capital Partners.
Okay, so a mix of capital, but with a clear, very influential leader in Adam Back.
Precisely. Now, the structure of this funding is interesting. It's worth unpacking for a moment because it tells us something about the agreement.
How so?
The funds were secured through 0% interest convertible loans.
Okay, convertible loans. All right, for listeners maybe not knee-deep in corporate finance, how should we think about that? What does that mean practically?
Okay, think of it like this. Instead of a traditional loan you just pay back with interest or selling off a piece of the company right away, this is a loan that the investor can choose to convert into company shares later on.
Ah, okay.
And the 0% interest part is also pretty notable. That's a very favorable terms for H100.
Yeah, definitely.
It suggests the investors, especially Adam Back, maybe see the potential value growth primarily in the equity, the shares, or perhaps the strategic alignment itself.
Rather than just getting a standard return on debt.
Exactly.
Got it. So it gives the investor potential upside if the company does well through owning a piece of it later.
Right.
And the source specifies these loans mature when June 15th, 2028. So H100 has several years.
Yeah, that's the maturity date. And the conversion price is set at 1.3 Swedish krona per share.
Which is about, what, 11 US cents per share?
Correct. And there's another clause in there, too. It allows H100 to actually force the conversion under certain conditions.
Force it. How does that work?
Well, if their stock price, specifically the volume-weighted average price, stays more than 33% above that conversion price for a cumulative 60 trading days.
Okay.
H100 can basically mandate that the loans turn into shares.
Ah, so it's a way for the company to sort of clean up its balance sheet when its stock is performing well?
Exactly. Push investors to take equity when the timing is good for the company.
Makes sense. And if a full conversion of these loans were to happen, what's the impact? The source mentions dilution, right?
It does. It notes it would result in issuing roughly 16.15 million new shares.
Okay.
And this would dilute existing shareholders by approximately 12%.
12%. That's an important detail for anyone currently holding or maybe considering H100 stock.
Definitely something to be aware of. But here's the punchline and the core strategic point, I think.
Yeah.
The stated primary purpose for securing these funds. It isn't just general working capital. No. It is explicitly, according to the source material, to purchase more Bitcoin.
More Bitcoin. Okay, funded by this raise, led by Adam Back.
Yep.
So how much Bitcoin are we potentially talking about with that $2.2 million?
Well, based on the current market prices cited in the source, this raise would allow H100 to buy around 20.18 more Bitcoin.
20 more Bitcoin, which when you add it to their initial purchase of, what was it, 4.39 Bitcoin?
Yeah, 4.39.
That brings their total potential Bitcoin holding to roughly 24.57 Bitcoin.
That's right, nearly 25 Bitcoin. It really shows the seriousness of their commitment to this Treasury policy. It's not just a token amount.
Not at all. So how did the market react to this rather unusual pairing of health tech and a Bitcoin treasury funded by a major Bitcoin figure?
Yeah. What did the investors think?
Well, the market reaction was immediate and pretty significant. Shares in H100 jumped a remarkable 37% on the day of the May 22nd announcement.
37%. Wow.
Yeah. And they climbed another 5.33% the following day, reaching 1.29 SEK, which is about 14 US cents.
Okay, so investors clearly saw this as a positive or at least a very noteworthy development.
Definitely seemed to capture attention. Which brings us to the critical question, why? Why is a health tech company doing this beyond just, potentially chasing investment returns?
Right. What's the official story?
The source gives us H100's rationale directly from their CEO, Sander Andersen.
Okay, what does he say?
He states, and I'm quoting roughly here, that the values of individual sovereignty highly present in the Bitcoin community aligns well with and will appeal to the customers and communities we're building the H100 platform for.
Individual sovereignty. It's a fascinating philosophical link they're drawing there.
Isn't it? Connecting the self-sovereignty principles, controlling your own keys in Bitcoin to the idea of individual control over your own health that their products aim to enable.
So it's an explicit attempt to bridge that gap between their business model, empowering health choices, and the sort of ethos of the Bitcoin community.
Right. They're essentially saying, look, if you care about personal autonomy in your health, you might also resonate with the financial autonomy offered by Bitcoin, and maybe vice versa. Our company embodies both.
It's a strong narrative.
Yeah.
And H100 is also positioning this move as pioneering, right?
They are. They claim this makes them the first public company in Sweden.
First in Sweden.
And one of the first in Europe to formally adopt a Bitcoin treasury policy.
Okay, one of the first in Europe. How does that stack up globally? Do we have context on that?
Yeah, the source cites data from bitcointreasuries.net. It shows that 112 public firms globally now hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets.
Okay, 112 worldwide.
And of those, only 10 are based in Europe.
Only 10 in Europe. So while it's still a relatively small group globally, it is a growing trend.
Exactly. H100 is joining this trend, but as you said, with this very specific stated rationale, linking it to their core mission and their customer base, that kind of makes it stand out, doesn't it?
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, we bought some Bitcoin because number go up. There's a whole philosophy attached.
So let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you listening? We've seen a Swedish health tech company, H100, known for promoting individual health independence, make a decisive move to put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. This pivot is significantly funded and endorsed by a key figure from the Bitcoin world, Adam Back, through that strategically structured convertible loan.
And their stated rationale is that philosophical alignment, the sovereignty central to Bitcoin, matching the individual control they advocate in health.
Right. So this isn't just an isolated financial transaction, is it? It feels like more.
I'd say so.
Mm-hmm.
It's a company attempting to weave Bitcoin into its strategic identity and its customer appeal, positioning itself as an early European adopter, but with this values-based justification.
Yeah, it highlights how companies are maybe thinking about treasury assets beyond just traditional finance.
And how they might align those assets with their brand and their target audience.
Yeah.
It's quite innovative, really.
So for you, the listener, this is maybe a case study in how companies are increasingly looking at decentralized assets, not just as investments, but as potential reflections of their core values.
Yeah.
So maybe consider what it means when a company dedicated to enabling individual health independence sees such a clear philosophical and practical alignment with the values inherent in a decentralized digital asset like Bitcoin.
Does this signal a broader shift, perhaps, in how companies think about value, sovereignty, and their fundamental relationship with their customers?
And maybe also, what does Adam Back's specific choice of that convertible loan structure reveal about his view on the company's potential equity growth versus just a simple Bitcoin holding?
Good point. Lots to think about there.
It certainly gives you something to ponder as you watch this trend unfold.